So you may already know about ESDE's built-in scraper. And if you don't, I'll link a video to details about it below. But I also know there are good use cases for using external scrapers too. For example, let's say you're preparing your game library before you get a new device, or you're scraping a large library of games overnight. So in this video, we're going to configure Skraper as an external way to scrape media and metadata for ESDE. Let's get started. So following along in this video requires that you have Skraper installed first. If you don't have it, go to skraper.net, click on download, and then download the version that's appropriate for your device. Once you have Skraper installed, you're going to get into the configuration wizard, and after you've entered your ScreenScraper login information, you're going to get to this front-end selection screen. Now on this screen you don't see ESDE, but that's okay. We're going to basically walk through how you can use the existing configurations here to output stuff in a format that ESDE expects. So to start that, you're going to click on Recall Box. Now why this works is because Recall Box uses a variant of Emulation Station, which also outputs its metadata in a Gamelist.xml format. And that's the format that ESDE looks for. So click Next, and then you're going to select your games path. In this case, I have a small demo folder set up for this purpose in here, and then ROMs, and you'll notice I have two systems, Genesis and TurboGrafx-16. Click OK. And then I'm going to check this Include Non-Recall Box ROM Folders option. And you'll notice Genesis shows up, but TurboGrafx-16 does not. We're going to fix that in a moment. Click on Next. And then this screen simply lets you know the default media that this configuration is going to create. We're also going to spend a bunch of time here updating this to the format that ESDE expects later. So click Next. And then you're essentially in the screen where you're going to be doing all of your other configurations. So you notice here on the left, there's an All Systems option and then a System option. Let's add the missing TurboGrafx-16 system. Now the process I'll go through here is the same process you would use for any system you want to add for scraping. So let's just do this. Click on plus down here. And then I have TurboGrafx-16 right here. And I'm going to click OK. And then the last thing I need to do is, because my games are in a TG16 folder, I'm going to change this folder name to match. That way I could find my games. So you'll need to do that for any system you want to add that wasn't already detected, but it's pretty straightforward once you get it set up. And once you have that done, that basically completes the per system configuration. Everything else that I'm going to do is in the all systems setup here. So make sure that you're selected on all systems here. And then we're going to go to game list and do most of our next configuration there. So there's not actually that much to change on the game list screen. Just a few things that I do want to point out. First is the game list full path. Now this is where Skraper will automatically create the game list file after it's scraped your games. But you'll notice that it's the same as the game folder. So in the case of Genesis, it's going to output into Genesis/Gamelist.xml. Now this is not where ESDE looks for these files. So later in the video, I'm going to show you how to move the Gamelist files into the correct location for ESDE. The next option here is subfolders. This basically is a way for Skraper to generate images for any folders you have in your ROM directory. In my case, I typically like to have those be blank, so I set it to ignore. But there's a few options you could scroll through here that basically set different types of images that you could generate automatically, which is pretty nice. Next, let's go to metadata. In metadata, the out-of-the-box configuration is really good, so I don't change much. The only things I do are turn off P2K config and activate normalized genres, simply because those are settings that ESDE doesn't really use, so best to keep it simple. Then let's go to miscellaneous. And the primary things that I do here are make sure that the region order is in the order that I prefer, and that the classification is also matched to the country I'm in. And I also turn off saved non-scraped games into file. Just not something I use. Makes it much simpler to set up. All right, we're going to spend most of the rest of our time now on media. So this is where we're going to spend most of our time. Essentially what we're going to do is update the configuration here to match the structure of the files that ESDE would expect and look for. So we're going to create a 3D box configuration, a back cover configuration, covers, fan art, manuals, marquees, mix images, physical media, screenshots, title screens, and videos. I'm going to walk through each one step by step. So this is probably going to be pretty long, but hopefully by the end of it, you get a good sense of how to structure this. And then once you get going, it's usually about the same settings for each one. So let's just do one by one. The first one, because it's already created for us, we're going to call this the mix image. So the first thing we're going to change is the name of the folder that it outputs stuff into. And I'm going to basically match this to the folder name that ESD would expect. So in this case, mix images, call that mix images. And the last thing I'm going to do on this is basically turn off the Gamelist link and set it to no link. Now this is because ESDE does not look in Gamelist files for media files. It looks in a folder. So turning this off removes that from being generated into the Gamelist file, which cleans things up a lot and makes things pretty kind of one-to-one match for what ESD expects. You'll notice I'm going to do this essentially on every media that I create. So in this case, I now have my mix image set up. And I'm going to go here to this other 3D box option here. And 3D box, I'm going to again change it to the folder name that ESD expects. In this case, 3D. And again, I'm going to select no link. And then I could choose to resize this. I'll make it bigger just for sake of conversation. And then we're good to go there. But now I have, a bunch of other images that I don't have added yet. So how would I do that? That's pretty simple. Click on add new media here. And when you have a new media item, you basically have this media type option here to select what type of media it is. So let's just go from top to bottom, and we're going to do back covers first. So I'm going to change this to, it's called image, I believe. Yep, there we go. And then when I select image, you'll notice I get another option here. And I'm going to change this to, should be box back, I believe. Box texture, box 3D, there, box 2D back. And again, the folder name that ESD expects, I'm just going to change that here. And then set this to no link. So you can kind of get a sense of the process, right? I'm going to basically do this for each one. So let's go and add the next one, which is going to be covers. Copy that folder name, change this to image, and then change this to box 2D. And then change that to covers. And then turn off no link. So you can kind of get a sense of the rhythm, right? All right, let's keep going. Let's do fan art next. All right, copy that folder name. Change this to images, and it's called fan art here. Change that to fan art, no link. And once you do this, it's basically done. You don't have to set this up again. Because we're setting this for all systems, it gets set up by default for any future scrapes you do as well. So let's do manuals next. Manuals is going to be, I believe, game manual. Set it to manuals, which it already is, and then set it to no link. Then add marquees. And marquees are images, I believe. Yep. And let's see, I believe that is under wheel, which is the preferred that I prefer. And then no link. And then let's do physical media, which is also an image. And I believe this is called support here. No, support, yep. Again, change that to physical media, click no link. And then we'll do screenshots, title screens, and videos last. All right, so screenshots, simple. Screenshot, change that to screenshot. No link. Almost there with title screen. Change this to title screenshot and then change that folder name to title screens and then no link. And then lastly is videos. By default, it's set to video, which is nice. It has my folder, which is good, and then no link. And now that's basically all the media set up. So with this configuration, when you scrape games, it's going to output media for all these different types into these folder names. And then I'll show you how to move them into the correct folders that ESD expects later on in the video. But at this point, we basically have everything configured. And I should be able to go to all systems here. and then click Start. So let's do that next. So clicking this button will either take a long time or a short amount of time. It really depends on the amount of games that you're scraping. In my case, I'm scraping 2 systems with 5 games each, so it should be pretty quick. But it might take some time, so just keep that in mind. Before we do that, let's see where we're at. Let's close this out, and then let's look at our folders. So this is our games directory. And when we start this process, what's going to happen is these folders are going to be filled up with a game list and media folders. And we're going to take those after this process is done, and we're going to move them into the folders that ESD expects. Another thing I want to show you is ESDE. So right now, you can see I have basically nothing scraped. So essentially what we're going to do is see what that looks like after I do this process. All right, so let's get started. Press this button. And again, it will warn you, it could take some time. And this is true, but let's press OK. And now what's going to happen here is the screen should change, and you'll start to see it essentially go through its process of scraping things. Now in this case, it was super quick for me because I had done this before, so a lot of these images are already cached. So keep that in mind. In this case, it's done. Now, if I go back to here and I open up the games folder again and then Genesis, you're going to see, cool, I have a game list file and a media directory. And then in TurboGrafx 16, I should have the same. And yes, awesome, game list and media directory. So let's move these now. So let's go into the ESD demo folder. And in my ESD installation folder, there's a folder called ESDE. This is the same on every platform that ESD is supported on. So just look for this folder. And then in that folder, you're going to have a downloaded media folder and a game list folder. These are the locations where ESD expects the files we just scraped. Let's do game list first. And then I'm going to create a folder here called Genesis, which matches the name of my ROMs directory. And then in that folder, I'm going to copy in the game list XML. And that's done. And then I'm going to go into the same root folder here for game lists, and I'm going to add another folder here called TG16 for TurboGrafx. And then in that folder, I'm going to copy the game list XML file from TG16. And that's game list done. Next, let's do downloaded media. So if I go back to the ESD folder and then downloaded media, same process. I'm going to create a folder here called Genesis. And this is a bit easier. In this case, I just need to copy this entire directory and paste that into the Genesis folder. And then go back to downloaded media and create a new folder for TG16. And then do the same thing with TurboGrafx. And that's it. Now our game folders are cleaned up. We only have games in them now. And our downloaded media folders have the media we want. And our game list folders have our game lists. Now if I boot up ESD, we should see everything. Let's see. And awesome. We have our media, images, videos. Everything looks good. So yeah, that's it. So that's how basically you can use an external scraper to scrape files for ESDE. Hope that was helpful. If there's any other scrapers that you think could be useful for us to check out, let us know. But yeah, thanks so much for checking us out. Take care.